What's up, guys? It's me, Carlos. For those that don't know me, welcome to Curled with a Book. This is my YouTube channel where I talk all things books. And the reason why I wanted to start this channel is in the end of 2019, going into 2020, I really fell in love with reading again. I did it a lot when I was growing up. Through like elementary and middle school, I used to read all the time. And I was known to my family as the reader. Like, I would always want to go to Barnes & Noble whenever I could, and I still do. But I kind of fell off during high school and like early adulthood. And I wanted to get back into it. And I made a resolution for 2020 to get back to reading, and I ended up reading 55 books. And my original goal was 30 for the year. So I took that as, okay, I'm getting back into it. But on this channel, I'm going to do all things books, which means like my TBRs for the month, my recaps, maybe some reading vlogs, a whole bunch of different things that are all book related / you'll see some of my personal life, but I want to keep it to books. The reason why is because there were so many great YouTubers that I was watching during the pandemic and them talking about books that helped me re-engage with reading a lot faster. One of them being Noelle Gallagher, queen, amazing YouTuber. Check out her content. She's amazing, and the way that she talks to you, it felt like talking to someone or being able to listen to someone in a pandemic where you're like stuck at home, not really doing much. So that helped me get through the pandemic a lot, and especially now that life's kind of opening back up, I wanted to try this and see, if it's something that I enjoy doing, and that's why I'm here. But welcome to my channel. For today, for my first video, I'm going to talk about my top 5 favorite books. Now, this was extremely hard to narrow down, especially after the past 2 years, pretty much, where I was reading a lot of great books and rereading some from my childhood that I loved. But getting to a top 5 was pretty difficult. There are some that, didn't make the cut, but they are still 5-star reads for me. But these 5 pretty much solidify my favorite of all time. Whether it be either the storytelling, the writing, a plot line that happens in them, just great content and great stories in general. So here we go. First up, of one of my top favorite reads in general, is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Sorry for the glare on the cover. Yeah, trying to figure out my lighting right now is not great. But this follows the stories of Achilles, and it's based off of the Iliad by Homer, which I've never read. I've always wanted to read it, but it always seems intimidating with the stories and the myriad of characters that are in there. But it follows Achilles and Patroclus and visits a queer love story between the two in a way that the writing was just stunning. The side characters were interesting to see, like Thetis, King Peleus, and Briseis. Some of these names I have no clue how to pronounce. I'm just going off of what I've heard off of YouTube. But yeah, and the writing was stunning. The ending, chef's kiss. Just chef's kiss. It just pulled your heartstrings in ways that I wasn't expecting. Even though I saw on TikTok and YouTube how this book will destroy you. And whenever I see things like that are, hyped up in that manner, I always ignore it and, don't build it up too much to where I can get disappointed. But this did not disappoint whatsoever. Highly recommend. Just beautiful writing. And it felt like an old story, but told in such a fresh way that I knew how it was going to end, but wanted it to end differently just because of how the characters in this one were explored compared to the original. But I just love this book. I do want to reread it eventually, but highly recommend. Next up, I have The Girl with the Louding Voice by Addie. This one, first off the cover, just magnificent. The pages that are folded into flowers, the purple, just even on the back with the reviews, just stunning cover. But this follows the story of 14-year-old Duduni in Nigeria, who grows up in not the best circumstances and pretty bad circumstances, quite frankly. But it follows her life from her mother telling her to get an education, to tragedy, to getting into a situation that leads to a lot of abuse for her. But this novel I read in one sitting. I didn't expect I can't even speak. I didn't expect for it to have such a hold on me that it did. I think it took me only like 5 hours to read through, and that was like with breaks also of like, eating, watching something, getting coffee. But just a phenomenal story. I think the way that this was written was really interesting just because with her talking about her education, how she wanted to be a girl with the louding voice. You see at the beginning how her English and the grammar in which she speaks is not always correct. And at first it was a little hard to read, but then I understood why the author was doing it, because as it progresses and her storyline is evolving and her education is getting there, you see the writing also pick up on that. And it was just such a great way of showcasing her journey throughout the story, and also the tragedy that she experiences throughout it. It's just amazing. I want to reread it just for the quotes, because they're full-on paragraphs that are just written so well and encapsulate so many different themes and concepts that can really be explored today, even in American society, compared to the Nigerian society that it explores. But just top-notch quality. I think this was a debut novel for her as well. But even the inside of the dust jacket, the yellow, it's just, I also like color on books. Just so well done. Very well done. Love it. Up next, I have The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This cover is also one of my favorites, the green, the pose. I like this better than the paperback that came out recently for it. It just didn't do it right. This cover is it. But the storyline follows Monique Grant, who is a young up-and-coming writer who gets basically called to write the memoir for the celebrity of Evelyn Hugo. And all that encompasses the drama of her life, and it explores her marriages throughout the 7 men that she was with. I personally am a fan of The Real Housewives and anything related to Bravo, and it was juicy, dramatic, and it kind of had me feeling the same way of what's going to happen next. But the way that Taylor Jenkins Reid, because I've read 3 of her novels now, with this one, Malibu Rising that just came out this summer, and Daisy Jones and the Six. Each of them are different in either the way that they're explained, but they have all the same rich girl vibes and rich girl drama in them. That's interesting to see. It's told in a way that is captivating and keeps me wanting more. So I'll read these really fast. I think I read this in 2 days, but it was 2 sittings. To where the first sitting I read the half of it, and then I had to go somewhere, so I read the second half the next day. But if I had nothing, I will read this in one day. I know Malibu Rising I read in one day, but highly recommend. I think the way that you see Evelyn's character evolve over time when she's explaining it, and those flashbacks that they have, because it goes back and forth between the present and previous times in her life, it just leaves you wanting to know what happens to this cast of characters and how they're all slowly interconnected in Evelyn's life. But phenomenal read. I think just top notch. Another one I want to reread. All of these I pretty much want to read, so I'll say that every single time, so just be prepared, okay? Next up, I have The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. This one, another cover that's just stunning. The faces intertwined, the colors that are used, even the back. And most of these are Book of the Month editions, just because I love that subscription. Low-key, Book of the Month. If you see me, I got you. But The Vanishing Half explores twin sisters, Desiree and Stella, and how growing up in a fictional town that is based on being as light as possible as Black people, how that affects their lives in their adulthood. One of them choosing to pass as white and the other one choosing to continue to identify as a Black woman, and how their lives were affected by that. And not only when they reconnect with each other, but also the children that they have and how their lives are so vastly different from the next. It jumps back and forth between timelines and explores a series of issues and topics that I think are so vital, especially in 2020 when I read this. But just a great style of writing. I think she writes in a way that is captivating, and really digs deep into the characters that are there, and doesn't make it seem slow. Sometimes when I feel like character-focused books, I get to read them, it seems very slow and just nothing's happening, but she digs into the characters' issues, their past, their personality, their faults, in a way that feels fresh and engaging as a reader, and which is why I love this. I also read The Mothers, which I loved from her. I'm excited for her next novel that's coming out. I don't know when it's coming out, but she's writing a novel based on like the divas of the music industry, I think, or yeah, something like that. But highly recommend. I mean, this cover, I just can't. Like, how does that happen? Lastly, I have The Invisible Life of Addie Larue by V.E. Schwab. This follows the life of Addie Larue in the 1700s of France, and she inadvertently makes a deal with the devil while trying to escape her life, the life that she knew in the village that she's from, and makes a deal pretty much that, you know, she just wants to be forgotten. Now, the devil in the story makes the deal to where she will be forgotten by people, but lives forever. And anyone that comes into contact with her will forget her the moment that she's gone, which leads her to lead a life of, you know, burglary, theft, and crime in order to get by. But the way that it explores the concept of what it's like to feel isolated and solitary was interesting to read, and how when she comes into contact with one man that doesn't forget her, what questions that leads her to ask, and kind of the journey that they both take on together, and the decisions that you have to make in life. And it talks about choices in ways that were interesting to read, but phenomenal read. I couldn't put it down. Just 5 out of 5. Amazing. I wish this wasn't a standalone. I wish there were more like novels in a series like this, but I get why it was a standalone, but great story nonetheless. Well, that is the end of my first YouTube video. I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you hear my dogs in the background in any of my videos, this is just a disclaimer. I apologize. You know, them licking themselves, eating something, chewing, snoring. I'm just gonna put it out here now. I apologize. But I am so glad to have finally done one of these videos for y'all, and I can't wait to see you next time. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and give me a thumbs up. Thanks, y'all. Bye.